Hello and welcome to the Pure GT social races in the IndyCar around Charlotte Roval. That's right, Pure GT have decided to go slightly rogue and go away from the open wheel, well, sort of open wheel, I suppose IndyCar is, isn't it? But the more traditional F3 open wheel European scene, and also their GTE and GT3 exploits around the European scene as well, and go to not only an American track in the Charlotte Roval, but also in an American car, predominantly in the IndyCar as well. It should be very interesting. We haven't seen how any of them are getting on, really. There does seem to be a little bit of a gap in qualifying between the fast guys and sort of those further back, but we're yet to see the sort of race pace that these guys are going to handle as well. Alongside me, as ever, is Ed May as well for these Pure GT social races, and I can't wait to be getting started. Ed, are you excited as I am?
Oh, I really am. I'm so looking forward to all of this, all of the action here in the Pure GT series. It never disappoints, does it? And to be here at Charlotte Roval, a tricky circuit, but plenty of high-speed drafting opportunities for moves into, say, the chicanes or into some heavier braking zones. It's going to be a real treat.
It sure is as well. And we can actually see in qualifying now a couple of the drivers maybe rotating round the circuit. In fact, here we go. Here's Barry Rabbit. We have got 9 minutes and 47 seconds left. Sorry, not left. 9 minutes and 47 seconds on the clock, which means we've only got about 5 seconds left to qualifying to boot. Unfortunately, I think they started at 25 past 8 when normally they start at half past. And there we go. The checker flag drops and everybody's back in. So we don't actually get to see the results of qualifying, but what we will get to see is the grid. So Paul Donkin qualified on pole position. Richard Abra, 0.003 of a second, it seems, behind him and late in that session, I assume. Martin Thomas was 0.8 behind Paul Donkin, with Andy Montgomery in 4th. Barry Rabbit 5th, Anthony Motton 6th, Max Hunt in 7th, John Newell in 8th, Paul Wafer 9th, Mark Hoskin in 10th, Christian Wafer 11th, Havanes Gevorgian in 12th. And I think, oh, there we go, we've only got one more driver, and that is John Westbrook. And although we missed most of qualifying, Ed, I suppose there's not much preamble for this series because it is just social racing, isn't it? It's all about the drivers actually when they get into the race, about how they get on and how sort of they enjoy it. It's not necessarily a championship.
Yeah, it is, like you said, just getting involved in the racing and having a good, fun time. That's what it's all about in these Pure GT social races. But you can see the cars, they've lined up rather strangely, haven't they? This is because they have the pace lap, and it is, I believe, a full pace lap around this circuit. It's almost like a Le Mans style start, isn't it, with the cars parked over there on the side of the road?
Yeah, you half expect them to start, out of the car, don't you, and get them to run over. But I think that would be some in-depth virtual reality that they'd have to invent there for that to be able to happen. So, I mean, we've had an interesting starting routines from the Pure GT, haven't we? We've had standing starts, but just ended up just spinning on the spot with the Dallara F3 cars. We've had GT3 machines just end up going to the back of each other. I think Suzuka, we had a bit of a disastrous round with a rolling start in F3s as well. So with any luck, this sort of new confounded configuration of starting will sort of reward these 13 drivers in a good clean start, because essentially, we've got 3 races this evening, and a clean race 1 is essential to trying to get a little bit of glory at the end of it.
Absolutely, yeah. It comes down to what we saw, wasn't it, at the circuit of Bathurst, when we saw that the standing starts didn't really bring about the cleanest race, and we saw drivers lighting up the rears, losing control and spearing across the grid there. So maybe this is a way to combat that, to try and have a a rolling style start, to allow the drivers to get some heat into their tyres as well. We can see Paul Donkin here at the front of the field. I believe they should be going single file until the end when they start to line up double file.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll keep it all nice and clean. I have plenty of embarrassing stories in motorsport, and had a fair few crashes in my time, but one of my most memorable and earliest memories in motorsport from actually driving perspective was I was at a karting track called Glanny Gore for sort of a very early, I think I was about probably 12, and just started out racing and everything like that. And at Glanny Gore, in all kinds of karting, you sort of have the rolling lap. You don't do standing start in karting because a lot of the karts can't do standing starts. So what you do instead is obviously a rolling start like we're here watching here, and at Glady Gore we have a lot of chicanes, and they sort of drop away quite suddenly all of a sudden. I was trying to warm the tyres, try and be like a real racing driver and all these sort of things, which did absolutely nothing in karting, especially the low-powered karts that I was doing. But I did it. I lit the rears up, and all of a sudden I span round and went into a tyre wall on the warm-up lap. And DNF'd the race before. Well, I DNS'd it actually because it didn't start it. I couldn't even start the race to get a DNF. So yeah, it's a little bit trickier than it looks to get one of these things off the line.
Well, hopefully we don't see any drivers trying to take a leaf out of your book. Hopefully we see all of them actually starting the race. As I say that, there is the driver apparently in the pits, and that is John Westbrook not making the start. So maybe they're doing the Jacko style of racing and not bothering to take part in the first lap, but we'll see how that works out for him. Paul Donkin, though, from the front, he's going to be able to determine when the field goes as they come through this chicane, and then one more chicane to go before we can get the first race of the evening at Charlotte underway.
Yeah, I don't know if did you actually have a watch of the IndyCar 500? Did you sort of partake in any of that when that's sort of on basically?
I did watch a little bit of it. Yeah, it was not the most exciting Indy 500 I've ever watched, but it was still quite interesting to see all of the sort of different strategies unfold. I was quite a fan of the Bitcoin car, seeing that do surprisingly well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I sort of tuned in for the first time ever, because normally I don't sort of take any note of any oval racing or IndyCar or anything like that. But the fact that I'd been doing a little bit of NASCAR with Sim Racers World and everything like that, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch it. It's not NASCAR, but it's of a similar ilk, on an oval and sort of lots of laps sort of thing. And it was quite enjoyable, I have to say. It's probably going to be more enjoyable than Paul Ricard will be at the weekend for the Formula One. But Paul Donkin's trying to get away to make it a good, interesting start here, and already they're trying to overtake each other before they even get to the start-finish line. Richard Abra's ahead of Martin Thomas, Andy Montgomery in fourth place as well, and I think that is actually how they were supposed to start it, but it looked like there was going to be a huge off. Oh, Richard Abra's just had a huge off as our camera.
Paul Wafer too.
Oh my days, yeah, well, this is what we feared, didn't we? Richard Abra's lost
Christian
6
Wafer, I think. The two Wafers collide in there, and they're all crumbled up in the mix with one another, unfortunately. That's going to be maybe a big pickup job for all of the crumbs. All the marshals having to make sure that the two Wafers are back in one piece and up and running again. Thankfully, there isn't any damage, so there won't be any debris left on the circuit. Meanwhile, well, we're seeing tussling all the way backwards, aren't we? Look at this, side by side in the background. I think that's Andy Montgomery going wheel to wheel with, I think that's Anthony Mott. They go into the chicane. The first time of asking this race. There's different lines being taken here. Andy Montgomery choosing to go far, far underneath the apron.
Yeah, interesting strategy that, isn't it? It looks like he's almost going to go into the pits, but it didn't work for him because Andy Montgomery spins off through the final chicane and goes, well, he has to do a full 360. It looks like he's going to try and do a 5-point turn. Spins it nicely, though. Gets it facing in the right direction, but slips down to 10th place. He's got 16 seconds between himself and Christian Wafer, who's had an awful start to this race. But Martin Thomas is at 1 position. He's in 2nd. Barry Rabbit's up 2. Max Hunt's up 3. And so is Havana Shavogian in 9th place. So a couple of drivers gaining a few positions, but there's probably more drivers that have lost a lot more, haven't they? I mean, specifically Richard Abra and Andy Montgomery.
Yeah, and then the car ahead just of Richard Abra is Paul Wafer, and he's on a hard charge, you have to say. He's up into 6th place, I believe. So very good stuff from Paul. You can see why I said he was on a hard charge by his paint job. Very interesting livery there from Paul Wafer.
Yeah, you did say that before, didn't you? But I was too busy installing all the things I needed to install. And yeah, interesting livery by Paul Wafer. And an even more interesting line. I'm not entirely sure whether that's actually faster going along down on the apron. But I've just realised I've just left my keys in the door. My girlfriend's trying to get in. So I'm going to have to very quickly go and let her in. But I'll leave you with the nice presence of Paul Wafer and Richard Abra.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, hopefully you're not left in the doghouse too long after the broadcast, Jack. But here we can see Paul Wafer and Richard Abra in a big tussle going through this mid-sector now. The camber really helps, and then it goes slightly off camber through here before the track drops through. Oh, there's contact there. Paul Wafer gets it all sorts of out of shape on the exit, and again he's lit up the rears, massively lost out. has a bit of a trip to the shrubs, and then again collided by Andy Montgomery on the way past just for good measure. So, Paul Wafer, from what was a great little fight he had with Richard Abra, one mistake has led to a real big consequence, him dropping back down the order. And you missed it, Jack. You missed it.
I'm going to watch it back.
Lost the rear, you're going to see. So he had collision with Richard Abra, and then just lit up the rear, spun it all the way around, parked in the shrubs, then decided to get up and running and got another collision for good measure, sending him even further back.
Yeah, he's got some hard graft ahead of him, hasn't he, to try and make up even more positions. He's lost one now, down to 10th place, which is a bit of a shame for Paul Wafer. But further up, looks like there's some good battling between Barry Rabbit and Martin Thomas, isn't there? This is not even for podium positions, this is just for second place. Sort of sporting honours. And again, a different line being taken. We're seeing more people go along the apron, and by the looks of it, for Barry Rabbit, that's actually worked out this time.
Yeah, but they're going to be tight together, aren't they? Coming into the chicane, and Martin Thomas backs out that move, but Barry Rabbit over the anti-cuts on the exit. The car jumps up at the rear, and that sends him only one direction into the wall. You can see it there as he comes through. The car looked unsettled already, and as he hit the curbing, that really just put the nail in the coffin. Losing control, spinning out and hitting in the wall. Thankfully, though, no damage, so he's able to keep on going and keep taking part in this first race of the evening. First of 3 races, so plenty of opportunity for Richard Abra to try and claw something back later on in the evening. Following, though, at the moment, John Newell, and he's being closed into by Max Hunt. This is going to be the battle for 3rd place. We're going to see it unfold very shortly, because look at this, Max Hunt really starting to close the gap now, and John Newell, he's messed up.
Yeah, he has, and we saw him run wide just previously, which allowed... and he's made contact. Who was that with? I think that was Barry Rabbit and Richard Abra. Barry Rabbit got ahead, and Richard Abra, unfortunately, is still upside down.
He's been hit again. He's been hit again onto his roof. We're going to see a replay of, I think, the misfortune of falling Richard Abra's car, because look, he got through there, seemed all right, then hit into the wall, got another hit on the way through. All seems good. Tries to get it up and running, and then look, another hit, a car sliding his way through. That was Andy Montgomery, and Richard Abra, after doing so well, has seen his race come to a early end.
I think it was Mark Hoskin who actually ended up being the final blow there for Richard Abra. We're just looking at his perspective. Coming round the previous set of corners, he comes over the hill. Actually, no, he has his own spin, Mark Hoskin, not even involving anybody else.
It was Andy Montgomery who lit up the rear of the car. You can see him at the front of the shot there, just trying to recover from that mistake. And then there was another mistake from John Newell. So they're all seemingly struggling with the Charlotte Roval in these Dallaras. And maybe it's something about having the car set up a little bit too stiff. Maybe the curb's unsettling. Not sure what it is, but definitely there is a lot of power that goes through these cars. It's no traction control, no ABS, quite easy to just overstep the mark a little bit. Andy Montgomery, car looks very loose, doesn't it?
It does indeed, yeah. Well, I tell you what it looks very, very stiff, doesn't it? And I think sort of going for less undulations is probably a good advice, I would say. You know, at the moment they're going on the apron, out of the apron, going over curbs and everything, and the cars just look super sensitive, don't they, to any sort of little bumps that may befall them. And I think what's probably best to do is try and chill everything out and just go for not necessarily fastest laps, but consistency. Every time they touch a curb, these things look like they're going to spit them back out.
Yeah, I think everyone's got the same setup, if I remember rightly. These are fixed-up races. And a big twitch in the background there. Who was that getting it all wrong? Not Christian Wafer, but I think that was John Newell.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a look, and you may well have been right, actually, with John Newell. Actually, no, it wasn't, because John's just going through the first corner. And I think it was Mark Hoskin, actually, who had that crash, and he's had a lot more crashes to boot after this as well. So here we go, it was Mark Hoskin, because he was chasing down, I think, of Havanas Gevorgian we were on board with for such a long time. He goes wide through the first corner, and then, as I said, those bumps and a huge flip over. He actually cut off the circuit there. He'll probably get a slowdown, I imagine. But he just ended up flipping over the wall, which I've never seen happen, to be fair. And yeah, that's why he's had so many crashes, because he keeps spinning it out there and just too much power going down. And Katie Eames has come in the chat saying, good job that there's no damage. I think they should put him on for 1 week just to see what would happen and go for a giggle. And I think, John Newell's showing that maybe it wouldn't be such a giggle. It would be sort of more of a demolition derby. It would be a shorter race, though.
Was that Casey in the chat? I think John Newell's going to disagree with you there, because look at that. He just immediately, as soon as you say that, has a hit into the wall. Max Hunt, driver that we see performing very well, he's also struggling and he's stuck in the tyre barrier, has to go to the pits. So drivers dropping like flies. The only one that's really been able to go through relatively unscathed is this man at the top, Paul Donkin.
Yeah, that pole position, man, he's got 16 seconds to good about Martin Thomas, hasn't he? But to be fair, after about the first half a lap, he had about 3 seconds to the good. Well, to be fair, not even half a lap, was it? He sort of got a good getaway from the start. And, please don't get in the way. Oh, there's a car in the way there. I think this is going to be his toughest obstacles, to be honest. It's just avoiding the people that have crashed out there on circuit.
It's definitely an intriguing race evening. Maybe that's the effect, is trying to stop Paul Donkin win it by all means necessary. Maybe they're going to try and employ some very strange tactics, maybe some roadblocks here and there, because Paul Donkin in this car at this track has been looking very good indeed. We did see, I think that was Richard Aber. Oh, there's the number 8 car, Andy Montgomery. He was trying to be a bit of a roadblock potentially for Paul Donkin.
Yeah, he was indeed. And I think, to be fair as well, they put 14 laps on. So normally they aim for 15-minute races, don't they? They put 14 laps on. And to be honest, I think Paul Donkin's the only one who's actually going to meet that 15-minute criteria at this rate. Just about setting that at 59-second laps. He's the only one that's dropped it. Oh, sorry, I tell a lie. I tell you what, Richard Abra, he had a 59-second lap, 59.97. So he was in it by 0.03 of a second, whereas Paul Donkin's in a low 59, to be fair to him. Not on that previous lap, but it doesn't always help when you crash into a back marker.
It doesn't always help. What I'm trying to wrap my head around is not only the amount of incidents we've seen, but also something that you people don't see at home is that our timing software splits this circuit into 3 sectors, but the first sector and the second sector usually take about 9 seconds to complete, and the final sector takes about 45 seconds to complete. So I'm not sure what the people at iRacing have thought, or what the people at Charlotte Roval thought when splitting this circuit up, but it doesn't seem to be the best split up circuit in terms of sectors.
It seems to be as soon as you come out of sector 1, as soon as you come out of turn 1, that's sector 1 done. As soon as you come out of turn 3, that's sector 2 done. And then the rest of the lap is the 3rd sector, which, yeah, you're right, it doesn't actually make any sense whatsoever. But either way, it's how they've decided to do it. What I can say as well, another interesting thing that Paul Donkin has done, thanks to all the crashes that's been unfolding ahead of him, he's lapped everyone up to 5th place already, and it's only a 15-minute race. That's how many crashes we've had so far in the Pure GT. With any luck, we'll have a cleaner race 2 and 3, because otherwise I can find us, yeah, with a bit of a quiet one. Actually, Barry Rabbit's in the pits now. Barry Rabbit has entered the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, with sort of racing like this, we could just find ourselves talking about British touring cars at this rate, Ed. Oh, yeah, Paul Donkin's in the pits.
Oh, Paul Donkin's entered the pits. Maybe he's decided to add a bit of excitement there, because drivers have definitely fallen off. Paul Donkin deciding to opt for the pit lane. And drivers are all in a Discord together. Martin Thomas there in 2nd place. Comes through this long bank section, the start of the oval once more. Maybe the less talked about the touring cars, though, and maybe your brother's performance is the better, because it wasn't the best outing at Snetterton, was it? But maybe we won't be needed to talk about that. Maybe we'll have a race on our hands.
Yeah, well, that is obviously the hope, isn't it? But I don't know. I suspect maybe there's a need for a pit stop. I'm not entirely sure. I can't believe that these drivers haven't put enough fuel in their cars or something, but maybe they're out there on qualifying setups and they underfueled the car or something, because nearly everyone's been in the pits. Now, I put that down mainly to the fact that they've crashed, but obviously there's no damage, so there's no real need to go back to the pits unless you get stuck in a tyre wall or stuck in another driver and you have to spawn back to the pits sort of thing. But at the moment, only Paul Wafer hasn't been in the pits and Andy Montgomery, but Paul Wafer's actually got into the pits now. So, yeah, Paul Donkin, he gained about 40-odd second lead on Martin Thomas, came into the pits, it's back down to 12. So, yeah, I think, although nobody tells us nothing, do they, Ed? I think there's a mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to definitely add some intrigue and drama in the future races to come, and especially, I think, is it the last race is a little bit longer, if my memory's right? I think the last race is
Yes.
a little bit longer in terms of laps, so we're definitely going to be seeing drivers potentially making pit stops. Does Martin Thomas go into pits? No, he doesn't. He stays out, so very interesting there, Paul Donkey. Maybe just wanted to close it up and have a bit of a fight. As I say that, though, he has picked up the pace once more and built a bit more of a gap to Martin Thomas. Barrett sets his personal best fastest lap of the race there in third. Meanwhile, we actually have a race on our hands, but this is between Max Hunt and John Newell. As I say that, John Newell locks up at the chicane and he's going to get himself a slowdown for good measure.
Yeah, you had to go and say it, didn't you, Ed? As soon as we get somebody close on track, you had to go and call it out. And, unfortunately...
Yeah, my big mouth.
Yeah, exactly. The commentator's curse strikes again. John Newell, goes wide. Maybe he would say there was a little bit of a nudge, maybe a bit of a squeeze. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see if he's got a good pace, John, and catch back up. He's got about 1.4 seconds. And to be fair, Anthony Mott actually might be interested in having a nibble, but we are on the white flag. We've only got a minute to go. It means these guys only have about a lap and a half to actually execute any kind of moves. But there's a huge off for John Newell yet again. And, we said that I don't think John Newell will be hoping for future... damage to be put on. He's certainly going to be praying it doesn't get put on, I think, because his race has been from bad to worse, really.
Yeah, certainly, yeah, but Paul Donkin, where is he on the circuit? He started the white flag lap, and there he is through the final sector now, but it's a long final sector, so the race isn't just done yet. He could have a mistake, don't forget. We have seen drivers make errors at this chicane, getting over the curves a bit too much. Could add a little bit of last-minute drama if Paul Donkin feels like it, but no, look at that. His car seems so much more planted through there than the rest of them. He opts to go down onto the apron right up to the yellow line, and, just one more chicane to go for Paul Donkin before he takes the checkered flag.
Yeah, exactly, and even though he's obviously on the last lap, but he's taken the checkered flag, he still looked like he was pushing the car there for trying to get a sub-1 minute lap. But Paul Donkin crosses the time to become the first winner here in the IndyCar for the Pure GT Social Races. Martin Thomas coming through the final corner is looking to put second place. Paul Waif has already finished in fourth. That's how many people that Paul Donkin overtook in the end. Barry Rabbit completes the podium, and we're just waiting for everybody else to finish now. Looks like Anthony Mott and Max Hunt are going nice and close to each other through the penultimate chicane, hopping over that final curb, which has upset so many cars in this race. Max Hunt still ahead of Anthony Mott after he wasn't quite able to, I tell you what, actually, he did hold off John Newell, because Newell actually ended up going off a couple of times, didn't he? So Max Hunt will probably come across the line to take the top 5 position as Anthony Mott slowly comes towards the final corner. I'm not entirely sure. Has he run out of fuel?
He might have done, as well. Through goes Andy Montgomery there, on board. No sound. I think, he's just lost fuel. He's having to clutch in and coast it through across the line. Anthony Mott just makes it across the line in time, and he's going to be grateful that he was actually lapped, because if he wasn't, he'd have to take another lap around the circuit and probably would not have made it until the end of the race.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was an interesting, wasn't it? Here comes John Newell, who hasn't finished the race, but by the looks of it, has just come out the pit lane, going past a couple of other drivers who have been lapped, and I think have finished the race. If they haven't, then they need to get a bit of a move on, don't they? But Paul Donkin, he was pretty superb. Oh, well, in fact, there we go. We have now finished the race, and because of the nature of Pure GT Social Races, Ed, as you will remember, although we have had a week off, we go straight into race number 2, don't we? And I can tell you, actually, the reason why we had that week off is because apparently most of the drivers that we have here today all met up in real life and went for a drive around the North 500 up in Scotland, which is quite a way to spend a week, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely a great way to spend the week, but also great to see that they've got that sense of community both inside and outside of sim racing. It's very rare that you get a chance to go out and meet your mates and have a good time in this this current climate, shall we say? To be as least political as we can be. It's great, isn't it, to see everyone out and about enjoying themselves? But because we have such a full lap around this circuit, we can actually, I think, run you through the finishing results of the first race as they get this pace lap underway. So Paul Donkin takes the checkered flag with a pit stop to boot as well. and 14 seconds, the margin between himself and Martin Thomas. Barry Rabbit going home in third. The last driver to finish on the lead lap, with Max Hunt fourth, Paul Wafer fifth. Andy Montgomery comes home in sixth place ahead of Anthony Mott, John Newell, Christian Wafer, Vanessa Gevorgian, Mark Hoskin, Richard Abra, and John Westbrook. And, well, if you want to know the starting grid for this second race, well, keep an eye on your screen because it's the exact same, no reverse grid here for this second race. Paul Donkin will be starting from pole position. Martin Thomas will be trying to be a little bit closer this time by, though.
Yeah, just in case you want confirmation of what Ed has just said, it's there on your screen. But I can tell you that we have 3 drivers not turning up for this one, unfortunately. John Westbrook was obviously a driver that didn't turn up for the first race. But John Newell and Havana Gevorgian have decided to not take to the grid either. So that's a bit of a shame. And, well, you know, I can't exactly blame John Newell because his race was... not ideal, was it? He had far too many crashes that he will be remembering all too clearly. Maybe they'll jump in for the final race of the evening. We hope so.
Yeah, we certainly do. We don't like to see drivers dropping out. We hope to see the fullest grid possible for these pure GT social races because they are always entertaining in their own way. You know, we don't have any championship to fight for, so it's just full on, no holds barred. They don't have anything long term to concern themselves with, so they just go all out every time. And well, Paul Donkin's certainly been showing his all out pace and as well his all out consistency, hoping for a repeat of his race 1 result.
Yeah, exactly. He had a fantastic start in race number 1, didn't he? He'll be hoping as soon as the safety car pulls in to repeat such a feat. But you can see Martin Thomas warming his tyres up in the background, hoping to maybe put a stop to that, shall we say, and really get his nose in on the action. But by the looks of, I thought Paul Donkin was going to run into the back of the safety car then. He's going to have to wait a little bit longer. We're not quite at the final chicane just yet. But it looks like Paul Wafer is just having a little bit of a warm-up on the outside as well. As we're going almost 3 wide through the final corner. A lot of drivers hoping for better races, maybe a lot learnt in the car as well over a race distance. We're going to go for the fact that they have to have a mandatory pit stop for fuel, as we saw Anthony Mott, even with his pit stop, run out of fuel right at the end, didn't we? So keep an eye on that one as the pace car starts to come in. Paul Donkin gets another good start. Martin Thomas caught sleeping, but not as bad as Barry Rabbit, who's caught sleeping by Paul Wafer. Huge lunge at the inside and a fantastic move.
Yeah, great stuff this, isn't it? Excited to see as well Barry Rabbit going through a move there on the inside of Paul Wafer, that is. Excellent stuff though, isn't it, to see such close fighting. Hopefully it will continue. It is only the first lap, remember. Max Hunt goes down the inside here of Paul Wafer. Just seemed to concede the position, let that one happen. Instead though, gets a good run through this second part of, well, the middle sector that isn't really a middle sector, it's the final sector. Got to annoy me all evening long, that Jack. You know I love my everything to be in order and as it should be, and it's just throws everything off just a little bit.
It does indeed, but that's why people like you study things like law, and I don't begrudge you at all, do I? And well, you finished your exams now, to be fair, Ed, so you can relax, maybe let your OCD down a bit.
Maybe, but there's no time for that, is there? No time for relaxation when you've got this to watch, when you've got likes of Max Hunt and Paul Wafer battling out on the circuit. You can see Paul Wafer looked for the move, just wasn't able to nail it in the braking. And, well, sorry if I went a little bit robotic there. My mindset dropped in and out for a second, but I think it should all be sorted. And we can follow Christian Wafer, who's now going to see if he can get past Paul.
Yeah, exactly. No one still has confirmed whether it's a father-son relationship, but I'm of the opinion that Paul is the dad and Christian is the son. I could be completely wrong, but that's sort of where I'm reading it anyway. So until anybody else corrects me, that's what we're going to go for. Anthony Mott's had an incident on the first lap. We can have a look here and just see. Maybe this was just a bad getaway. Maybe he looked up the inside too early. Not entirely sure yet. Going into the final chicane. Oh, he's just been tapped around, hasn't he? But I'm not sure who that was. The number 8 car, I think, maybe. Both of them ended up on there. It's Andy Montgomery. Andy Montgomery. Yeah, he just looked. I mean, we'll go on board with Andy Montgomery, shall we? Obviously, that's Anthony Mott on the left-hand side. and he just locks up and goes into the side of him, doesn't he? And then ends up just on their roofs. Even the camera had enough of that one.
Yeah, exactly. He's just trying to hide from view whatever happened there, of course. But now we can see Richard Abra out on second. I think is this a replay of him having a moment? Oh, just a massive twitch as he dips below the apron and then gets stuck in the barrier.
He does, and that's why I would question going for the apron, to be honest, Ed, because it does. I mean, these cars are stiff. They're clearly twitchy. Whenever they touch a curb or anything like that, they're clearly. I mean, with that, the car goes entirely in the air, and they've only just really clipped that curb, and yet they seem insistent on going towards the apron, which just upsets the cars even more, doesn't it? It is clear that I would say clear. It's probably quicker because we've seen people overtake people by going over to the apron, but it does seem like a risky game, high risk, high reward situation, probably.
Absolutely, but I've just seen one more time there. Barry Rabbit has set the fastest lap of the race so far, 59.8. Blistering lap time being set there from Barry. He's trying to close the gap now to Martin Thomas in second. This little sector, though, is so difficult to get right. The way the track can sometimes fall away from you, the rear of the car gets light. It's so easy, especially here as well. Slightly off camber, really upsets the flow. We've seen drivers losing control at the rear of the car, but it seems to be fine for the moment for Barry Rabbit. And now we come to the chicane, the bit where you can really see the lap time being made up by these quick guys. Look at how Barry Rabbit sends it through on the verge of traction, on the verge of losing it and sending it into the wall, but he stuck through it. Great onboard shot that from Barry Rabbit, and tell you what, I want to see it again next time we come by, just to see how much he's prepared to send into that corner.
It is astonishing, isn't it, really? The penultimate chicane is just flashes by without you even realising it's gone, doesn't it? It's so quick. The amazing sort of feats that these guys are going for just to get it in towards all four apexes is quite astonishing. It's a much higher sort of standard than I could potentially imagine. Oh, as Barry Rabbit goes for the four-wheel drift and then spins it off as well. And we were saying just before, Ed, you just said it then about the camber, the way the track goes in and out, sort of up and down and to the left and to the right. It's just so difficult to try and keep the car balanced, and Barry Rabbit, with all his commitment then, has just failed to do such a thing.
Yeah, it's so difficult. The way that the track undulates and the camber change really allows the rear of the car to sort of feel a bit lighter, isn't it? And that's when you can notice that the rear gets lit up easier onto the throttle. You need to be so delicate with the car there, but also have the confidence that the downforce is going to save you almost from a movement like that. Meanwhile, we can see Andy Montgomery again coming into the bus stop. And that's just on the exit. Had a little bit of a bump, thought the car was settled, got on the power, but the car was, well, definitely not settled by the way it responded, spinning all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, I've only actually ever had one experience on an oval circuit, and it's probably the one that you can guess. Can you, in real life, oval racing, can you, it wasn't oval racing, but can you guess which track I've driven in oval standards?
Is it one of the only ovals in the UK, Rockingham?
It may well, but yeah, no, it is actually. Yeah, it's not that difficult to figure out, is it? No, my first ever race meeting was actually at Rockingham as a rookie and everything, and I got an absolute lightning start. I was in fourth, but I went up to first by the time we got to the first corner at Rockingham, which isn't very far at all. And I led it for about, I think it was a 15-minute race. I led it for 12 minutes, and then there was a guy behind me constantly, just properly harassing me to sort of try and get past all the way to, over the start-finish race. So the final corner was essential. And the reason I'm bringing up the story is because I did exactly what we just saw there as well from Andy Montgomery. I came out the final corner, and I was so keen because this guy, Phil, was so quick out the final corner, which meant he was always on the outside, because I defended for the inside of the first corner, that I just lit the tyres up before the car was settled, before we'd really got onto the incline, and lit the rear tyres and span it around. It's so easy to do, and I did that with 120 horsepower or something ridiculous. I didn't know what I was doing, and these guys have a whole lot more than that in these Dallara Legacy Indy cars. So I can absolutely understand why they're struggling with the undulations and the camber change in this circuit. Yeah,
it's so tricky though, isn't it, to try to adapt? As my internet had a massive cutout there. Thankfully, I was able to catch most of the story, but yeah, it's definitely tricky, isn't it, to adapt to all of the changes that with the cars have had as well, and also just the fact these cars are so stiff on a circuit where you don't really want to have it so stiff. And we come to Paul Donkin here as he makes a very uncharacteristic mistake. That was going through, well, the second sector, wasn't it? Loses the rear, collects it. I want to see a replay of that potentially, because you can see him fighting the steering wheel. Massive amounts of look at that twitch, tap of the wall, and then finally it comes settled for him.
Yeah, it's he got away with that one, didn't he? I mean, it was good skill to keep the car under check from Paul, but realistically, we've seen a lot less end up a lot worse here this evening around the Charlotte Roval. So good hold by him. Richard Abra has also had an incident about the same time, to be honest, that Paul had that little slip, and these sort of little incidents. As he comes onto the oval, yeah, that's it, exactly that. Going onto the oval is what I was talking about before. But it's sort of these incidents are the reason why we're not having the sort of close, consistent racing, isn't it? Because realistically, I think our closest gap that we've got out there on circuit at the moment is 6.4 seconds, which is the gap between Barry Rabbit and Martin Thomas, which is something that's pretty unheard of in pure GT racing, isn't it, Ed? Because normally there's always at least one battle that is within a second, and we tend to focus on that. I think Spa, we didn't know where to look. But it is quite astonishing that we've had such a gap. Thank you very much, Tony Hewitt, for the like.
Yeah, and you can see here where Barry Abbott's coming through now is where drivers have had so many incidents, and it's coming onto the banking, much similar if you've had experience of this, Jack, in iRacing, driving around Daytona, the road course there, when you come onto the banking. It's so easy, isn't it? There's bumps on that little changeover to lose the rear of the car and spin it all the way around to the left-hand side. So even in something like a GT car, you've seen drivers make that mistake before, and those have traction control and, if you're driving a GT3 car, ABS. So drivers have been finding the limits here and there. It's just so much harder in a car like this Dallara DW12 with the sheer amount of power that it can put down.
It is indeed. Have you ever driven the Dallara, the DW12 at all? Any of the Indy cars, Ed? Because I know neither of us own the new one, so I just wondered if you'd ever driven the Legacy.
I had driven it before, and I've also driven it more extensively on sims outside of iRacing, and Barry Rabbit there. You can see again a bump of the curb on the inside. It doesn't look like much, but it really unsettles him, sends him all the way around, and well, he's able to get it up and running rather quickly. But that just shows, isn't it, the bumps, the transition from oval to, or road course to oval course, really does upset the cars.
It does indeed, and I knew I remembered some facts about it, just because we got a little bit of time where there's not a massive amount going on at the moment. I don't know if you remember, but obviously a company that we both work for, Ed, Sim Racers World, they did a NASCAR event, Season 1 and Season 2, and I was on it with Hassett, wasn't I? And it was a fantastic event. Never really watched NASCAR or any oval racing before. And we found that there was an awful lot of safety periods, caution periods, basically. If anybody ever watched iRacing, oval racing before, it's littered with caution periods, basically. So we started a new segment called Ollie Facts, and it's basically where I just brought up facts about whatever racetrack we were at, because me and Hassett didn't know much about it. So I was like, right, I'm going to research it, and we're going to try and get some interesting facts on the go. One of the most interesting stories comes from Charlotte, so I'm just going to, we've got a couple of laps left, and there's not much going on the circuit, so I thought I'd share it with you, because normally you're the one with all the facts, Ed, but this time,
yeah, I was going to say,
I'm going to go and give it a bash. But basically, when they wanted to build Charlotte, it was to try and sort of rival, Indy, basically Indianapolis. And, sorry, not Indianapolis, it rivaled Daytona at the time, actually, in 1959. And what they did is they found a plot of land and they borrowed $700,000. A lot of money back in 1959, to be honest. Unfortunately, what happened is when they got to the site and they actually started excavating it, they realised that there was an absolute massive amount of, I've always said this wrong, I don't think it's granite, I don't think it's graphite either, it's one of the two anyway, and they had to spend all £700,000 or dollars on TNT just to blow the place out of the way. I think it was only for turns 1 and 2 as well, so it wasn't even to get the entire thing cleared out. So they had to spend their entire budget to build the entire facility on dynamite just to try and shift some of the actual sort of stuff that was in the way. I will just try and get at what it was exactly, the stuff that they had to move. But yeah, it's sensational that they even got the funding after that to come here and build it again.
And to be fair, that fact there has blown my mind, pun intended, of course. The TNT being used at turns 1 and 2, I had no idea that was...
It was granite.
Part and parcel of creating this circuit. Although you may have a cease and desist coming through the mail after stealing my trademark of all my lovely facts that I like to present on the broadcast. But no, thank you very much, Jack. That's really interesting, actually. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, in the end, it actually cost $2 million to build it in 1959.
Was that in 1950s money?
Yeah, astonishing amount of money, isn't it? Really, when you sort of break that down. I don't know if anybody's out there on the chat, or if you in fact want to sort of Google the inflation rate, how much $2 million would be from 1959 to now. That'd just be ridiculous amount of money, I imagine. But yeah, certainly blew their budget out of the water. But also, another person who's blown something out of the water is Paul Donkin. Because, again, in this race, we've seen him do one mistake. We cut to him briefly, and he made the one mistake at the time. Well, he's just been absolutely smashing it. Barry Rabbit gets overtaken by Martin Thomas, finally giving us something to look at in this race, by the looks of it. On the apron now, these two going a little bit side by side. It wasn't as if either of these guys went into the pits, but they do have Paul Wafer ahead of them as well to say, oh, Barry Rabbit fires too much over the curb. And, well, as I said, they were going to give us something to watch. That was very short-lived.
So, wait, was that in 1953? Did you say that they spent $2 million on the circuit?
1953 was what they finished with in 1960, I think.
So, 1953, spending $2 million equates to around $20 million. So, 10 times the amount that they spent back then would be spent in today's money. $20 million just for a race circuit. That is...
It's not even like it's the race circuit you see today either. It was literally just asphalt, or whatever they call it over there. Yeah, no grandstands or anything. Literally just the asphalt and some banking. That's all that was spent on. Amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm going to say it again. Mind-blowing stuff. But we do come towards the end of the race, isn't it? The white flag has been waved and Paul Donkin comes through the chicane for the second time this evening, taking his second race victory. Great stuff from Paul Donkin. He has been looking absolutely fierce out in front. Meanwhile, Martin Thomas again finishes second best. Barry Rabbit was so close in the end and then decides to do a little bit of a pirouette across the line. Extra points for style, but you don't get second place just from style points, do you? Max Hunt then coming through the chicane for his final time in this race and plants it into the wall and then just decides to be a bit more safer, just trundling through and making his way into the chicane to finish fourth.
Less people actually finishing laps down this time round as well, which I suppose is an improvement all round, but there was less wheel-to-wheel action, wasn't there, up and down the circuit, and there were less people actually taking part, so maybe the IndyCar, not necessarily the most popular thing these guys could have chosen. I doubt that they'll be choosing it again. But what happens now essentially is we can bring you the results from race 1, the results from race 2 as well, and then they have a 10-minute warm-up session. It might actually only be 5 minutes nowadays, actually, before race 3 starts this evening as well. So what we're going to do, Ed, is we're of course going to go back through race 1 results, and then do race 2 results, and then we're going to go for a quick break. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So, on screens now, Paul Donkin. That is the results from the first race ahead of Martin Thomas, Barry Rabbit, Max Hunt, Paul Wafer, Andy Montgomery, Anthony Mott, John Newell, Christian Wafer, and Havanas Kevorkian completing your top 10 with Mark Hoskin and Richard Abra. 11th and 12th, John Westbrook, unfortunately, not taking any part in that second race. Then I think we have the results of the second coming up now.
Yeah, exactly. Paul Donkin took another race victory ahead of Martin Thomas, another second place, and Barry Rabbit in third. Then Max Hunt was in fourth. Andy Montgomery, a lap down, was in fifth. Paul Wafer, Richard Abra, Christian Wafer, Mark Hoskin, Anthony Mott round out your top 10. Anthony Mott did start the race, but only lasted 2 laps before retiring. John Newell, Havana Gevorgian, John Westbrook didn't take the start line. And what we're going to do, like we alluded to before, is go for a very quick break. I think it is only 5 minutes. Ed, can you just very quickly check whether it's going to be 5 or 10 minutes?
I can check, and it is going to be 10 minutes 10 break. Minutes.
Plenty
So,
of time to
still-
go and get a drink then, isn't it? And we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Oh, that hasn't quite gone to plan, has it, ladies and gents? There we go. Hopefully that's appearing on the screen. There we go. Welcome back to Pure GT Social Races at the Charlotte Roval with the IndyCar Legacy, the Dallara DW12, if you want to be specific. So we're about to grid up for the final time this evening, but just a bit of a quick shout out. Paul Donkin has been on the... just in my inbox, just slid into my DMs between those race 2 and 3, saying that he was, one, enjoying the racing and enjoying the fact that obviously it's commentating and everything like that, but two, the fact that he didn't actually know that there was a mandatory pit stop involved. So there is a mandatory pit stop. We were speculating about such things, and Paul Donkin didn't actually know there was one. That's why he had to come in really rather late in race 1. I think he did it in race 2, which meant his victory stood. But also, last thing that Paul Donkin wanted to mention is a big shout out to his mum and dad. Apparently, they always like to tune in and listen. And I just want to make sure I'm getting their names right, so I'm just getting them up, getting his message up. Now, it's Brian and Lynn, apparently, and I assume Brian and Lynn Donkin. So, hello to you guys. I hope you are tuning in and enjoy the shout-out. Ed, it's been frantic racing, hasn't it? I think there's no doubt about that. It's been inconsistent, shall we say, from a lot of the drivers. Now we've got a reverse grid. It's probably only going to be more dramatic.
Yeah, been very chaotic, so we're going to see what Paul Donkin can do from, well, the back of the grid. P8 for Paul Donkin. You can see him there, right at the back there. Find the likes of Martin Thomas and Barry Rabbit. Richard Aber, meanwhile, he's been showing a decent pace towards the front. See what he could maybe do with the likes of Anthony Mott higher up as well. And, well, Anthony Mott has been... rather quick, you have to say.
He has been quick, hasn't he? But he's been incident prone, as have most of the grid, though, to be honest. And I reckon it's probably not a reverse grid, an 8 reverse grid, is it? I imagine it would have been 10 reverse grid, if not 12. I think it's normally 10. But unfortunately, we haven't got all 10 drivers here to do a reverse grid. So it's actually ended up being an 8 reverse grid. And if you're wondering how on earth they line up, we can quickly run you through it now. So Anthony Mott on pole position, Mark Hoskin in second place, Christian Wafer. In fact, this isn't actually how they're going to line up because so many people dropped out. So it's just easier to tell you who's dropped out, I think. Mark Hoskin's not joining us anymore. Christian Wafer, unfortunately. John Newell, Havana Javorian and John Westbrook. And then none of those drivers joined us for race 2. And Mark Hoskin and Christian Wafer have joined them in backing out for race 3 as well, which is a bit of a shame. We never like to see drivers jumping in and out. But I think we sort of come to expect this as we go forward with the Pure GT social races, don't we, Ed? Because life is starting to get back underway, which is why we've gone from about 27 cars on grid to 13 and obviously reducing throughout the evening. And I think just some people just can't quite find the time for sim racing. We're seeing it all over the place, aren't we?
Yeah, as well, the weather has, like I said, been very nice. I think drivers are just taking more time out in the sunshine, enjoying the increased freedom that we're getting, even though it has been delayed a little bit. They're still enjoying the nice weather, enjoying all the things that we can do at the moment. So that's fair. It's a shame that we haven't got the big grids that we're used to seeing, but hey, that's just the way things go. Meanwhile, very weird tactics here being employed by Anthony Mott, massively backing up the field here. Richard Abra and Andy Montgomery having to slow up as they're not getting penalties. But, well, is Andy Montgomery, Anthony Mott, sorry, going to come through? Oh, he does eventually arrive up. And now, oh, he's gone. He's played that to perfection, you know. He's been very cheeky with how he's done that. Caught out Richard Abra massively. Wow, what a way to start the race.
He has indeed, hasn't he? He did, correct. Oh, Richard Abra, I think, made contact there with one. I'm not totally sure who it was, actually. It may have been Paul Donkin. I could be. No, it wasn't. I think it was Max Hunt that made contact with him. And Max Hunt himself has actually ended up in a crash and looking the wrong way, as well as Paul Donkin, I believe that is. So, there's a little bit of a spin. He's back to the pits.
Yeah, Paul Donkin seems to be potentially out of this race. I'm not sure what happened there at the start to Paul. Maybe try and find out later on. That'd be good to know. Meanwhile, further up in front, got this man, Max Hunt, leading the way through the field. Not Max Hunt, sorry. That's Paul Wafer we're actually following here.
Well, actually, following Martin Thomas at the moment. Paul Wafer is in the race lead. Max Hunt's all the way down in 7th place. And fun fact about Max Hunt at the moment. Oh, huge hit for Martin Thomas as he went over the I don't really know what to call them, sleeping policeman curbs, I suppose. But either way, showing how twitchy these cars are. Paul Donkin actually came, as I said, he was on the chat before, and he said that they were on a knife edge. These cars, and that was shown there by just how Martin Thomas got propelled into the air.
Yeah, really tricky to get these cars set up how you want them. And again, as we just cut away there from Martin Thomas, he had a mistake there going through the first corner. So just to emphasize our point with how the cars are literally balanced on a knife edge, there's a mistake there from Martin Thomas rather.
Yeah, now we flick to the front. We can see Paul Wafer, Barry Rabbit is hunting him down, and we saw just how committed Barry Rabbit was, didn't we, in the previous race, and he's going to go for the outside line, which is weird to say, considering he's on the inside line for the oval, but not on the apron. He's going to go for the race lead, and he's managed to get it, and that's the commitment he shows through the penultimate chicane. It's just so quick, isn't it, for him, going through there. And here we go, Richard Abra just being overtaken by Andy Montgomery, I think. But again, they're just absolutely clattering that curb, and then cut straight down to the apron. No wonder it catches the cars out.
Yeah, it's taking the style of driving that you'd maybe see in a GT car, clot the curbs, drive between the white line to white line it, and, well, we're seeing it with some of these DW12s, and they don't really like it. You need to drive well within the bounds of the car, keeping off of the curbs if you can, making sure as well to just be nice and gentle with it, sort of consistent, soft inputs, not soaring at the wheel, because in a car as twitchy as this, well, you're going to see exactly what happened there to Anthony Mott. You're going to lose the rear of the car and, well, lose a whole heap of positions. I'm not sure, though, if that was a solo incident or if he was helped around. Was that the smallest bit of touch there from the number 2 car, Martin Thomas? I couldn't hear any contact. It looks like he was already going beforehand.
I think he was already going beforehand there. I don't think there was any contact. And I was just having a look. Obviously, one driver... Another thing, he managed to pack in a lot into this very small conversation we had in between races. But Paul Donkin did say that he thinks his luck has run out and from race 1 and 2. And it could be argued to be agreeing with him, because here it is. He's coming across the line to start the races. And all of a sudden, we see him rotating the rear just a little bit. Whoa. It doesn't even rotate. It just screams into the wall.
Snaps on him.
Yeah, bad.
That just snaps on him. So that looks like a technical issue to me. If we could get another replay of that maybe on board, just to see what his inputs were like. So this is it at the start of the race. Does very well to avoid a spinning Richard Abra, that was. Coming through the first corner, goes fine. Oh no, he does have a twitch. He does correct the car. It just snaps on him, oversteer. Wow, Paul Donkin embedded in the wall as well. There's no easy way out of that other than a trip to the pits and having to serve the tow. He's back out on circuit though, is Paul Donkin, so he's not going to be giving it up just yet. Gonna try and find out what he can serve to gain as the race goes on. Meanwhile, Barry Rabbit sets the fastest lap of the race, extends his gap in the front to 8 seconds.
Yeah, unfortunately though, Paul Donkin is out again, but he is a full lap down. So I don't feel like he's going to really be able to do much with this one. And actually, he may well be overtaken again to be 2 laps down, because Barry Rabbit's not that far away from him realistically in the lead of this race. Paul Donkin we'll be able to cut to him on the same corner essentially. You can see in the track map at the top of there, Donkin's about to go through the penultimate chicane. He's going through it now, and as Barry Rabbit enters the penultimate chicane now, that is how close they are. So I fear that Paul Donkin may well be caught here if he's not too careful, because Barry Rabbit, when he gets it hooked together, is extremely quick, isn't he?
Extremely quick indeed. Anthony Mott then closing the gap between himself and Andy Montgomery, making their way into the chicane. The real difference maker for lap times between the quick guys and the not so quick guys. And it's a very quick run by Anthony Mott. He's going to be going right down to the yellow line underneath the apron. Here he goes, closing in as he makes his way into the final chicane here. And a lock up there from Andy Montgomery. And that's a mistake that sees him lose out on 5th place. Anthony Mott had the awareness, though, wasn't he, to avoid that incident before it happened. And then further in front, we can see another battle starting to come to the forefront. This is Paul Wafer and Martin Thomas. And I'll tell you what, I really do love the little onboard shots that we're getting as Paul Wafer clarts it into the wall, He's going to have a slow run coming out as they come onto the straightaway. That isn't really a straightaway, it's a sort of banked section. And Martin Thomas opts to stay high, go on the actual racing circuit, not down underneath the apron. Takes third place. And Richard Abrett, well, he's carrying on a charge after his spin at the start. Is going to find if he has a way through on Paul Wafer. Into the final chicane they go. And they all start to try and sort out Max's lock up though. Richard Abrett into the wall, loses time.
Yeah, he does indeed, doesn't he? And I think it's not helped when someone like Paul Wafer is lagging in and out, isn't he? I mean, we keep seeing him flitting in and out of existence. And when you're chasing a car that quickly, or when you're trying to battle with one, it doesn't help, does it? If you can't really see where they're going to be, or it's a little bit inconsistent. But I think there was just a bit of a late braking zone from both of them, and that meant that neither of them really got the corner hooked up like they were hoping for. So Martin Thomas gets about a 1.5 second gap between himself and Paul Wafer. Richard Abrett about 1.5 seconds as well, to be fair. So we could see this battle close up yet again if we see the drivers start to make small mistakes and assist in that sort of draft as well, because that's something we haven't spoken too much about, is it? But around these oval circuits, draft can be a major factor.
Yeah, it really can be, and we're starting to see it, haven't we? As Richard Abrett close back up again to Paul Wafer into the final chicane. There you go, and look at how the closing speed is there for Richard Abrett. And then, well, Paul Wafer doesn't choose to fight it, does he? Goes quite... Oh, I was going to say he's gone all soft on Richard Abrett, but maybe that was because Paul Wafer saw what might have happened.
Yeah, and Andy Montgomery clatters into the side of Richard Abrett, but carries on as if nothing happened, thanks to the fact that we haven't got damage on. And Max Hunt, I think, is 19 seconds back, so it's going to take a lot to catch Richard Abrett. But that fight, unfortunately, came to a premature end, didn't it? Which is a bit unfortunate. And I'll tell you what, actually, it sort of segues me nicely, as we got a little bit of a gap between the action, Ed, to a question I was curious on asking you, because I actually discussed it whilst eating a curry over the weekend with my family at Snetterton. Because I was like, oh, I didn't have to work on Wednesday because a lot of the drivers were away on the North 500 route. And it sort of sparked the conversation of what is your sort of ideal car to do the North 500, like a road trip in the north of Scotland, beautiful scenery, obviously hopefully good weather and everything, so you can have a top down if you want to have a soft top or anything like that. But it sort of sparked the conversation of what would your ideal car be in that situation. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on that sort of topic.
An ideal car, I don't know, would probably be one that I could afford, because I don't have the best amount of money. As a student, of course, and funny enough, actually, I don't even have a driver's license. Done, I think, one lesson before the start of lockdown, but then haven't really gotten back into the swing of things. So hopefully I can get up and running with a driver's license soon to my name, so I can go to all these wonderful motorsport races that are going to be happening in the future. As we see Andy Montgomery have an incident, which then get back on the second. Back to what you were saying about ideal car. You see, I kind of like classic muscle cars, something like maybe the Ford Mustang Boss, something like that is a very nice car. But then also, if we come for something a bit more modern, there's nothing nicer for me than the Nissan GTR, the new sort of the R35 style thing. That's just a very nice car, but not with all the mods that people put on them. No, I just want it nice as it comes out of the factory, because that's just a brilliantly engineered bit of kit. I
was going to say, because a muscle car, I can understand the appeal. I always quite like the idea that if I had a 10-car garage, you know, when you sort of do this sort of classic question in the pub sort of thing, oh, if you had a 5-car garage or a 10-car garage, like dream garage, what would you be? I would always put a classic muscle car in there. I think they're amazing. But I think to drive around the Highlands of Scotland, I think probably wouldn't be the best idea. So I was sort of going for a sort of soft top or something like that, and you know, sort of the BMW Z4, the new one, I think it sort of takes my fancy a little bit as well. My brother got given one of them for a month or two last summer. I think it's a stunning car, and I think it'd be really good fun. Anthony Mott would probably rather be in a nice BMW Z4 right now in the Highlands, because clattering over those curbs, he's not had the best of times in the Indy car. But yeah, so I'm thinking sort of the BMW Z4, that style of sports car, 2-seater, soft top would be absolutely stunning. To be honest though, we are actually actually planning it, me and my girlfriend. We were planning the Highlands North 500 route, and I'll tell you what car will be in as soon as this battle's over, because we've only got 4 minutes left, and Anthony Mott has now been overtaken by Andy Montgomery, who's all of a sudden found himself in a podium position.
Yeah, this is going great for Andy Montgomery here. Trying to, well, get his early spins behind him. He's running decent pace, but then if we're going to talk as well back to ideal car, money no object, for me, it'd have to be a Ferrari Testarossa. That car is just beautiful. Such a wonderful sound as well. That is, if money was no object, that would be the car.
Yeah, it would have to be no object as well, because those Testarossas are absolutely stupid amounts. But to be fair, I think they actually like drive very well. I've heard from people sort of actually who owned them and who have driven them over the last 20 years or so. They never actually handled that fantastically, but they are just iconic and honestly some of the most beautiful works of art that you could potentially see ever, couldn't you? Oh dear me, although Anthony Mott's car is not going to be a work of art by the end of this, even though it is sort of got that classic F1 McLaren livery, I think it is, isn't it? It's not going to be quite as a hot win the Indy car after he's done with it.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be too good for Anthony Mott there. Barry Rabbit makes his way in, staying in the lead of the race. Finally, his time to go through. Now that he's got clear, hasn't had to worry about fighting with other cars. We haven't really seen too many mistakes from Barry Rabbit. I think we've seen a couple here or there, but on the whole, been relatively clean.
Yeah, I did think I was looking at Anthony Mott thinking, yeah, I've seen this car a lot this evening. It's because it's got the same paint job as Barry Rabbit, hasn't it? The Marlboro iconic sort of F1 livery, I should say. And yeah, to go back to the North 500 route, actually, as I said, me and my girlfriend are actually planning it for next year. We're sort of looking at the accommodation and everything to look and get it booked up, and we're doing it in a bright yellow VW camper van. Because my mum has got one. It's one of the new sort of builds, so it's based off the old specs, but it's a new build. So it's actually got a new VW 1.4 litre engine. So fundamentally, it works, which is always nice. And the gearbox is new and everything like that. So it works, but it still gives you that sense of excitement and joy that sort of like comes along with just being in a camper van. My dad actually camped in it at Snetterton over the weekend, as he always does at Snetterton. And yeah, it's just a fantastic little, I say little, it's just a fantastic thing to be in. And yeah, we're planning on doing the North 500 in a VW camper van, bright yellow. I wanted to do it, as I said, in a nice BMW Z4 or something, but a little bit like you alluded to before, can't quite afford it. And my girlfriend didn't want to go in a knackered £500 Mazda MX-5 for some reason, so we're going in the camper van instead, which I can understand.
Yeah, certainly. It's a lovely car, is it? The old Volkswagen camper van, iconic, you have to say. But there's so many other cars that people would think about driving. Potentially, is it the Mercedes E-Class convertible? Now that is a very nice car to go cruising around the northern coast of Scotland in. I'd
Jag
imagine
E-Type would be very nice as well. If you're talking E-Type, the Jag.
Yes, going E-Type Jag. That is another good shout, but we need to focus actually a little bit on some of the racing that we're seeing now, isn't it? Because Paul Wafer, he's going to be going down the inside of Max Hunt, or at least trying to, as they make their way into the final chicane. Doesn't quite come to fruition here, and Barry Rabbit is sure to start the final lap in not too long amount of time, I reckon. So this could be a close fight till the end of the race.
Could well be, yeah. Barry Rabbit actually 34 seconds ahead, and he's already done his mandatory pit stop as well, so an absolutely stellar race by him.
And at the top, you can see the track map there. There's only, 4 cars out on circuit.
You know, I'd missed that. Yeah, it's absolutely weird, isn't it? To be honest, I think, to be fair, they did do, although we didn't broadcast it, they did do a race last week. And I think it was an hour-long endurance race in radicals or something like that. So they are trying different things here in the Pure GT, which I think works for some people, keeps it fresh, interesting, you know, different sort of races. But I don't think it works for many others. You know, they like to learn the car. They maybe don't have as much time to jump in all the different sort of cars that they can get their hands on or buy them all on iRacing. But here goes again, Paul Wafer. Oh, he spins out in the end. And that's really good for Paul Wafer, because that actually looked like a fantastic little fight that he had with Max Hunt, and probably the longest fight that we had in the entire evening, but it does mean that we can focus on our potential race 3 winner, Barry Rabbit. That to be a big upset not to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Barry Rabbit then coming through the final chicane here to take the final race victory of the evening. Great result there from Barry Rabbit. Dominant race performance, you have to say. Andy Montgomery there. Now, well, all on his lonesome, isn't he, in second place? Ahead, though, of Max Hunt and Paul Waferer. Well, that could potentially come close in this final stage of the race, depending on how good one gets a run through the chicane. If Paul Waferer can an absolutely storming charge, then we might see Max Hunt under a little bit of pressure. Doesn't seem to be happening though, as Andy Montgomery comes across the line in second place, and Paul Waferer, while he is closing that gap to Max Hunt, I don't think we're going to be seeing any moves being made into the final chicane. Nope. So Max Hunt comes across the line to take third place. Paul Waferer less than half a second back in fourth. Great little fight though it was between the pair of them.
It was, and you know, it's not very often I say that, but as all 4 drivers cross the line, that is it. we have now finished the race, which means we can bring you up the results for the third race of the evening, and it is confirmed that Barry Rabbit took that race victory 35 seconds ahead in the end of Andy Montgomery, who managed to recover to a podium position. Barry Rabbit as well, by the way, he did that, gaining 7 positions in total. He was in the lead quite early on, so he probably took advantage of some incidents right at the start. Andy Montgomery then in second place, as I mentioned. Max Hunt was in third. Paul Waferer ended up in fourth, and then we start the lapped cars. Anthony Mott 5 laps down. We saw him having a bit of a torrid time this evening. Richard Abra and Martin Thomas both 7 laps down after Martin Thomas had 2 podium positions in the first 2 races. Paul Donkin, after winning 2 races, ended up in 8th place in the final one. Mark Hoskin, Christian Wafer, John Newell, Havana Gevorgian and John Westbrook all didn't start the third and final race of the evening. In fact, John Westbrook didn't start any of the races in the evening, which is a bit of a shame. With any luck, hopefully we'll have a slightly bigger turnout, and maybe at a car that they maybe know a little bit better as well. Because although the Dallara DW12 Legacy is a free car on iRacing, it doesn't mean it's an easy car, Ed.
No, it certainly doesn't. It's so tricky to try and get nailed down, and the drivers, I think, have found that out the hard way here at Charlotte Roval. The IndyCars have thrown up some exciting races, maybe not the most clean races, but you can't deny that BGT hasn't provided some excellent and fun racing for us to both commentate over, Jack.
Yeah, exactly. And I enjoyed our little chat about the North 500 as well. It was quite entertaining. Yeah, so I think it's probably about time we sign off, Ed. So I'm going to wish everybody a big thank you. I hope that you're doing okay, even though if you're in Britain watching this, obviously we had the 4-week delay. Well, I say Britain, England. We had the 4-week delay, obviously, on all the restrictions coming up. So I hope that hasn't got you too down. With any luck, sim racing is keeping everyone going a little bit better as well, as it has done throughout the most of this lockdown for a few people. And yeah, we'll be back next week for more Pure GT social races. We no longer stream on a Friday for the Pure... sorry, no, it wasn't the Pure Sims. It was the Next Gen GTE Grid Engineering League. However, me and Ed actually have some plans coming up to do a bit of recording and streaming sort of during the day as well, and try and get some different kinds of content up for Jacko Racing going forward as well. So if you are interested in any of that, please do give a like and a share on the channel, or a follow or a subscribe, depending on where you're watching this from, to keep your eye out on all that sort of thing. As soon as I get into the office, it's all guns blazing, which should be, fingers crossed, next week. It's been a long time coming. My name's been Jack Oliphant. I've been joined by Ed May. You've been watching this on Jacko Racing, and we'll see you later.